Long before the cameras ever found him, Ian Roussel was already a legend in the making, just not the kind who chased fame. Born and raised in California, Ian didn't grow up with the silver spoon of sponsorships or the luxury of a high-end garage. He was drawn to fabrication the way some kids are drawn to music or sports. It wasn't a hobby, it was instinct. As a teenager, he spent his time shaping metal, scavenging junk yards, and imagining what cars could look like if rules didn't exist. While most builders learn by apprenticeship or trade school, Ian took a different route. He learned by doing. Trial and error. Weld and grind. Blow it up. Build it again. That fearless attitude became the foundation of everything he'd later create. What truly set Ian apart was his imagination. While most customizers stuck to hot rods or restorations, Ian envisioned vehicles that looked like they came from another planet or another time. Futuristic silhouettes, alien curves, bubble canopies, rocket fins. He wasn't trying to be different, he was different. And that authenticity earned him respect across underground car communities, especially among those who valued fabrication over flash. By the time Full Custom Garage hit the airwaves, Ian wasn't looking for validation. He already had it from the only people who mattered, real builders. He didn't ask for a production crew, didn't need a team of designers, and certainly didn't want a show built on fake drama. What audiences got instead was raw, unfiltered creation. Welding masks down, sparks flying, metal becoming something new right in front of your eyes. That's Ian Roussel. He's not just a fabricator. He's an artist with a torch. And the desert is his gallery. If Ian Roussel's builds look like they belong in a post-apocalyptic comic book, the setting he builds them in is even more surreal. There's no fancy sign out front, no air conditioning, no corporate branding, just a low, sun-bleached structure in the heart of the California desert, surrounded by rusted parts, welding sparks, and the sound of grinding metal. It's the kind of place most builders would write off as a junkyard. But for Ian, it's sacred ground. Out here, far from the polish and pretense of the mainstream custom scene, Ian has created a space where imagination is the only limit. And sometimes, even that gets pushed. The environment is brutal. Summers climb well over 100 degrees, and winter nights can freeze a man's bones. There's no comfort zone here, but Ian never wanted one. He doesn't need spotless epoxy floors or CNC machines. He needs metal, a welder, and a rough sketch in his mind. What makes the desert shop magical isn't the equipment, it's the vibe. Every project starts with raw, often discarded material. Fenders from a forgotten Ford, rooflines from cars that haven't moved since the 50s. But in Ian's hands, they come alive again. And he doesn't waste time with endless planning or Photoshop renderings. He cuts, he bends, he tacks. He builds with instinct, not software. There's a quiet defiance in how he works. While the rest of the world chases perfection through technology, Ian stays analog. The heat, the dust, the noise, they're not obstacles. They're part of the process. He welcomes the challenge. Because in a world that rewards flash over foundation, Ian Roussel proves that greatness doesn't need climate control. Just a torch, a table, and a whole lot of heart. When most TV shows are launched, they start with pitch decks, agents, producers, and test pilots. Ian Roussel's show, it started with a camera, his wife, and a shared love for real-deal craftsmanship. There was no production crew when Full Custom Garage was born, just raw footage shot in the moment, with no script and no filter. It was never meant to be television. It was meant to be documentation. A time capsule of what happens when one guy, out in the desert, welds his wildest visions into reality. It didn't take long for people to notice. Fans weren't just impressed, they were obsessed. The DIY filming style felt authentic because it was authentic. Viewers were watching the same thing Ian saw. The first bend in a roofline, the first spark of an angle grinder, the silent, satisfying moment when two mismatched pieces of metal finally fit together. There were no fake deadlines, no drama, just fabrication, failure, and triumph. The show wasn't edited to make Ian look like a genius. He was a genius, but the footage showed the grind that came with it. Some days were rough, projects stalled, ideas collapsed, but the camera kept rolling. And that's what made Full Custom Garage special. It wasn't just about the cars, it was about the process, about one man battling rust, time, and the elements to create something the world had never seen before. Ian didn't chase TV. TV chased him, and he let it in, on his terms. Most people who land a show eventually become personalities. They trade the workbench for the spotlight, but not Ian Roussel. Even after Full Custom Garage gained cult status, he never stopped doing what made him unique: building, alone, quietly, with the kind of relentless focus that doesn't leave room for ego. While other shows evolved into brands with merch lines and sponsorship deals, Ian kept his circle tight. He doesn't wear branded polos or promote tools for cash. You won't catch him at every industry expo or on red carpets. Instead, he's in the desert, still cutting, still welding, still grinding. Every panel on his builds, shaped by his hands, every frame, measured by eye and instinct. There's no one else doing the heavy lifting. And that's exactly how Ian wants it. TV didn't change him. In fact, he almost walked away from it. More than once, Ian considered pulling the plug on the show, not because it failed, but because it succeeded too much. The attention was uncomfortable, the fame unwelcome. For Ian, the shop is his church, and too many cameras risked turning it into a circus. But fans kept coming, not because he sold out, but because he didn't. Ian remains that rare figure in the custom world, someone who can be on TV without ever becoming TV. No frills, no filters, just fabrication in its purest form. To Ian Roussel, the torch will always matter more than the spotlight. If there's one word that defines Ian Roussel's creations, it's unpredictable. His builds don't follow trends, they defy them. Where most custom shops lean towards slick muscle cars or resto mod classics, Ian's imagination takes him somewhere else entirely. He builds bubble-topped streamliners that look like UFOs, rat rod monsters with exaggerated fins and nose cones, futuristic hot rods made from parts that were never meant to go together. Each car is a statement, part sculpture, part vehicle, all Ian. One of his most talked-about builds was a jet-inspired land rocket made almost entirely from junkyard finds. The body, hand-fabricated. The glass, sourced from a discarded camper. The interior, minimalist but functional, like a fighter plane stripped down for speed. It didn't just look fast, it looked like it had time-traveled from a 1950s comic book. Another standout? A radically chopped and sectioned car that resembled something you'd see in a sci-fi noir film. Part Blade Runner, part Mad Max. And the wildest thing? He builds most of these machines solo. No massive team, no digital mock-ups. Ian works with tape measures, chalk lines, grinders, welders, and gut instinct. He doesn't wait for the perfect part, he creates it. Sheet metal becomes a canvas. Junkyard leftovers become centerpieces. Every weld, every cut is deliberate, even if it starts out improvised. It's not about polish, it's about presence. These cars don't fade into the background at a show. They stop people in their tracks. Some fans call them weird, others call them genius, but nobody ever forgets them. Because once you've seen a Roussel creation, you know, no one else builds like this. In a world flooded with influencers and brand deals, Ian Roussel stands apart for what he doesn't say. He's not out there pitching products. He doesn't fill episodes with speeches about car culture or shop drama. When he shares a piece of advice or insight, it lands with weight. Because he's earned it, not through self-promotion, but through decades of dirty hands, broken tools, and breakthroughs. In a world where many builders chase followers, Ian Roussel chases form. And that's why his fan base isn't just watching, they're learning. You won't find Ian Roussel plastered across billboards or popping up in celebrity magazines. He doesn't have the mainstream fame of a Chip Foose or Dave Kindig. But what he does have is something more powerful, a cult following. A loyal, passionate tribe of fans who don't just watch his work, they live it. They're fabricators, dreamers, garage dwellers, and free thinkers. And to them, Ian isn't a TV personality. He's a prophet of the build-it-yourself gospel. Scroll through forums, YouTube comments, or Instagram posts, and you'll see it, the reverence. People write about Ian like he's the last real builder in a world of made-for-TV mechanics. They appreciate that he doesn't talk down to them, that he shows the struggle, the sweat, the uncertainty, that he works alone and lets the results speak volumes. He doesn't just inspire, he validates the idea that you don't need $1 million shop to create something unforgettable. What's fascinating about Ian's fan base is how global it is. His builds may start in the Mojave, but their influence reaches far beyond. Builders from Australia to Germany have written to say that full custom garage changed how they approach fabrication. That Ian's raw, honest method gave them the courage to pick up a welder and try. There's also a deep emotional connection. Fans don't just admire his work, they relate to it. They see a guy who chose freedom over fame, who built a life not for views, but for vision. And in that choice, he gave people permission to do the same. Ian Roussel didn't chase a cult following. He earned one by refusing to be anyone but himself. Building alone might sound like a dream to some, but for Ian Roussel, it's a daily trial by fire. There's no crew to lean on, no camera team to cover mistakes, no buffer when things go sideways. In Ian's desert shop, it's just him, the steel, and whatever the weather throws at him. That's the trade-off for freedom. No rules also means no safety net. When you're a one-man operation, every task is yours. Need to bend a frame rail? You do it. Need to lay down a perfect weld bead after hours in 100-degree heat? No one else is coming to tag in. From troubleshooting electrical, to hand-forming body panels, to tuning an engine that shouldn't even fit in the car, Roussel handles it all. And when things break, stall, or fail, he just figures it out. And let's not forget the environment. The Mojave Desert isn't exactly forgiving. There are days when the wind kicks up so much dust, it feels like working in a sandblaster. There are weeks of triple-digit heat where tools burn your hands. Add the physical wear and tear, sore joints, welding burns, eye strain, and the grind becomes something most people simply wouldn't endure. But Ian does. Why? Because he chooses this path. The challenge is the point. Ian has said in interviews that he thrives on the pressure, on the solitude that sharpens his focus. It's not that he couldn't build a team or scale up. He doesn't want to. The minute he brings in too much help, the vision dilutes. The spark fades. So while other builders film from glossy garages with crews and catered lunches, Ian's out there braving the elements, grinding in the silence. And that silence? That's where his best ideas are born. Strip away the show, the cars, the legend, and what's left? A man who never asked for fame, and never bent for it. Ian Roussel is, at his core, a humble, grounded soul. He doesn't court attention. He doesn't chase followers. His life outside the shop is as private and low-key as his builds are outrageous. He's a family man first, devoted to his wife, who has supported and even filmed many of his earliest episodes. Their partnership isn't just behind the camera. It's woven into the rhythm of the life they've built. Together, they've chosen simplicity over spotlight, solitude over celebrity. And that's reflected in everything Ian does. Ask anyone who's met him, and they'll tell you the same thing. Ian is approachable. No ego, no pedestal. Just a guy who loves to build and respects those who do the same. He doesn't walk into car shows looking for recognition. He shows up to admire others' work as much as his own. That humility is rare, and it's real. Off camera, Ian is also a dog lover, an outdoorsman, and a man who values peace over performance. He's not trying to prove anything anymore, because in his world, the proof is already rolling on four wheels, raw and roaring with creativity. And that's the paradox. The man who builds the wildest cars on TV is probably the most down-to-earth figure in the business. Fame didn't change Ian Roussel because it never mattered to him in the first place. Legacy doesn't always come with trophies or headlines. Sometimes it's carved in steel, etched into welds, and left in the dust trails of desert test runs. Ian Roussel's legacy isn't about being the most famous builder. It's about being one of the most authentic. And in today's age of mass production and media gloss, that might just matter more than anything else. What Ian has created goes beyond cars. It's a blueprint for creativity without compromise. A path for those who don't fit into mainstream molds. A living example that you can chase your vision, alone, against the wind, and make it work. His show, Full Custom Garage, didn't need drama to capture attention. It needed skill, passion, honesty. That's what drew people in, and that's what made them stay. His builds, no matter how wild or weird, always carry his fingerprint. You can see it in the welds, the flow of the body lines, the way the whole car seems to move even when standing still. Every creation is a time capsule of his philosophy. Build bold, build raw, build real. And when it's all said and done, Ian Roussel's story will remain an anthem to the lone builder. A reminder that the garage is still sacred. That imagination, grit, and torch heat still matter. That one man, one vision, and one desert shop can inspire a global movement without ever needing a spotlight to validate it. Because in the end, Ian Roussel didn't just build custom cars. He built a way of life.